Hi all, welcome to the Pro MMA Betting podcast. We're going to break down the UFC card coming up in a couple of days as we always do. Quick recap on the weekend. There was no pre-bets on the weekend. Didn't really like the cards for betting. I've got to be honest, I don't like the next couple either, particularly for betting on the pre-bet side of things. Just nothing that's really jumping out at me, but we'll come to that anyway. So it was just live bet for the weekend just gone. We had a few bites at the cherry because we had boxing on Friday night and we also had boxing on Saturday night. So we profited slightly on the Friday night on the boxing. We profited on the boxing on the Saturday night as well. We managed to get a couple of live bets in during the Eggington Cheeseman main event. And we profited on the UFC live betting. UFC live bets, because I know most of you are more MMA listeners as opposed to boxing. So just a quick recap on them. We had 4 live bets. We had Johnny Munoz Jr. to win inside the distance at the end of round 1 at plus 130 or 2.3 in decimal. I thought if he got another takedown, he could finish because he got the takedown eventually in round 1 and he just smashed the guy on the floor. I think he was on the verge of being stopped, but he just couldn't get another takedown after that. So that didn't come in. That was a unit we lost there. Then we took Jonathan Martinez inside the distance at even money at the end of round 2. So that came in, so that won the money back. And then managed to get a unit on Bobby Green at just under even money. Can't remember when that was. I think it must have been, was it mid-round 2? I think it was mid-round 2. Or maybe the end of round 2. I can't remember. But we got it at just under even money. That came in. And then this one was a bit hit and miss, unfortunately, for members. Some got it, some didn't. But we jumped on Jennifer Maia at plus 120 for a unit. And that came in as well. I was screwing when she got taken down off the head kick. I was like, oh, God's sake, she was winning the round. Now is she going to give the round away from lay and pray? But I was still scoring it for Maya anyway while I was on the floor because she was the one scoring. She was landing some nice elbows, but you just never know how the judges are going to score these fights. So that came in as well. So it was a good weekend for live betting. We won on all 3 events. This weekend we've got live betting on Friday night for boxing, and then Saturday it's just the UFC. So 2 events for live betting again. Got 1 pre-bet this weekend. I don't love this card either. I did have 2 pre-bets, but I've actually bought out of one of the pre-bets. I'll come on to that when I get to the fight. So, yeah, not loving this card either for pre-bets. Going to concentrate on live betting mainly for this event. So if you do want to sign up for the service, guys, pre-bets are emailed out. If you want live betting, you need to join the Discord channel. We've got over 160 members on the Discord channel. There's a little community going on over there. The guys are constantly chatting fights all day. So if you want to discuss fights, it's a great chance to jump on and chat with people. The chat's frozen during the fights. So live bet tips are given during the fights, of course, and the chat is frozen, so no one else can contribute. You just see any tips that I put out, and then it's unfrozen at the end of the fight and frozen again when the fight restarts, and rinse and repeat. It's £195 for the year for pre-bets and the live betting service. So you've got access to pre-betting and live bets. You're likely to make the money back within 1 or 2 shows, and the rest of the year will just be profit for you. You can sign up on the website ProMMABetting.com. I often do discounts on Twitter. Give me a follow on Twitter at ProMMABetting. You can DM me if you've got any questions on Twitter. You can also email me if you want, info@ProMMABetting.com. Last year, guys that use £100 per unit won £14,500 across the year. All bets are tracked. There's a link below this video to all 3 of our trackers. You can also find them on the website ProMMABetting.com. We do 6 monthly and weekly packages as well if you want to sign up and just get a feel for the service. But as I've said before many times, it's a long-term process, guys. It's like the stock market. You don't invest into the stock market expecting to realise great returns quickly. You know, it takes time for the returns to come in. So when you jump on board this service, you have to come on with a long-term vision. The guys do make money, but we have ups and downs. I can't win every week. It's impossible. Some weeks we lose, some weeks we win. All I can say is over the course of a year, based on the many years I've been doing this now, I come up in profit every year. But you have to trust the process long term. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's betting, guys. We're betting on a very unpredictable sport. Anything can happen in this game, as most of you should know, especially if you're considering betting on it. So you've got to take the highs with the lows. Just remember that you can't win every week. There are going to be losses, but long term we will win money, and it's a great chance to build a second income and use that money for something good. Don't go spunking your profits on other sports, giving it back to the books, exactly what they want to do. And don't go doing parlays. I get the question every week on my comments, what parlay do you recommend this week? Guys, I don't parlay. It's how books make most of their money, from parlays. Just don't do them. If you're just betting for fun, throwing a little pennies down here or there, then, feel free. But if you want to make some money in the long term, you need to drop the parlays, or at least just have a very tiny amount of cash that you put in on them. Don't be using parlays as your main bets. And I'm sure I'm going to get some clever dick comments saying, well, I make all my money from parlays, because I did have this the other month. Well, 99.9% of others don't. So if it's working for you, great. But for 99.9% of others, it doesn't. As I've already said, it's how the books make most of their money. It's through parlays. Now, if you're doing it for a bit of fun, fair enough. But if you're trying to make money long term, then do not be putting units upon units on these parlays. They don't come in, guys, not long term. And that's what I'm all about, is long term results. I don't care if you hit a 5-man parlay this week and you win 10 grand. Long term, you're going to lose that 10 grand if you keep doing that. So it's all about the long term process. Single bets is where the money is to be made, guys. Trust me on that. And you can follow Dave Mason at Bet Online and on Twitter, and he will always comment about ex-fighters, one of our fighters being used for the chalky parlays that the public loves. They love them, the books, because it's how they make their money. So straight bets is where you're going to make money long term, guys. I've changed my life with betting on MMA, and it's been done mainly through betting on fighters straight, not putting them in silly parlays. I used to do those parlays where every show you put 8 fighters in a parlay, and so many times I'd have like one fighter lose, and you always see it on Twitter. I nearly hit it. Look, one fighter cost me. Yeah, it's always the way, guys. There's always going to be one. I know, I've been involved in MMA betting for many years now, and I chat to a group of guys that are generally good bettors. They don't do parlays. They might throw a little bit on a long shot parlay, like I've said, with 8 fighters in it. I know one person that's won one in all those years. I can't remember how much he had on it, maybe $50, and he won about 15 grand. So obviously great return. I remember the final leg was Corey Anderson by decision against Glover Teixeira. So that's the only person I ever know that's won one. It's just not worth it, guys. You might as well just go and buy a lottery ticket. Do you know what I mean? It's just stick with the single plays and you'll make money long term. So if you want to sign up to the service, as I've said, ProMMABetting.com, packages are there, or give me a follow on Twitter. You can message me on there and sign up via PayPal if it's one of the discounts. At Pro MMA Betting is the Twitter handle. But let's move on to the show this week. We'll break it down as we always do, from the first fight of the card right through to the main card. First fight, we've got the debuting Ali Al-Qayizi taking on Erwin Rivera. So Ali, I've done some tape on him. Jordanian guy. I think he's the first Jordanian to fight in the UFC. I think he moved to America about 6 months ago. I assume he was training in his home country up until then. But he did move to America. I know he was at Fortis at first, but I think the whole COVID thing affected that, and he ended up moving to Las Vegas, where he's living at the moment and training. So he's not fought the best competition. There's some tape out there. I couldn't find his last fight. All I could find was the briefest of clips. And at the end of the fight, his opponent runs and jumps on top of the cage, and he had his hand up when the referee was waiting for the MC to read out the decision. So I don't know if that was a controversial decision or not. I mean, sometimes you do get people raise their hand when they clearly haven't won, but for someone to go and jump on top of the cage suggests that it may have been a close fight, but I can't find it. I found his 2 fights before that, and I didn't find the fight with result unknown. I don't think anyone's going to be able to find that if the result is unknown. Bizarre there. And I found his 2 fights before that. He likes jumping for guillotines. You can't do that in the UFC. I mean, this is 2020. It's not going to work. Maybe 15 years ago, you could have got away with that. You can get away with it on the regional scene. UFC, it's not going to work. So he needs to drop that. I'm sure training in America, that's something that they would have been working on with him. He seems to have limited stand-up. I mean, he's a Kung Fu and Sanda world champion, but his stand-up seems pretty limited to me. His go-to is for the takedowns. He likes to take the body lock and hit the outside trip. Not the best top control from what I've seen. The guys normally work their way back to their feet, but his cardio seemed solid for his style, considering he takes guys down and they get back up and he has to take them down again. He seems to have solid cardio. But, I didn't leave tape feeling overly high on him. Erwin Rivera fought about 3 months ago in the UFC, short notice against Giga Chikadze. He made his debut up at featherweight. He's normally a bantamweight fighter. Outclassed in that fight, but he obviously took the shot to get his foot in the door with the UFC. He was overmatched, fighting up a weight class. Terrible stylistic fight for him, and he showed how tough he is. He's never been stopped, I don't think, in his career, except for there's one fight I watched where it was an inside leg kick. I think he's a southpaw, Rivera. And it was to his calf. I've always wondered if the inside leg kick to the calf works, and this one just wipes him out. Literally one kick, and it took him out of the game. And he's saying that he was KO'd as well in a combat show back in 2016, so he has been stopped a couple of times. I couldn't find that fight. That's the only time he has been stopped, and it's a fight where he won the first fight, and in the rematch he got stopped in the first round. But I didn't watch them. I went back and watched more recent fights. I watched the Terry fight where he lost by a lead kick because it's in Titan. And then his next 3 fights are all in Titan and viewable. Last 2 fights in Titan, he fought Matt Waggy from Team Alpha Male. I know nothing about Matt, but I assume coming from that camp, good wrestler, good submission guy. Rivera shut him down after the first round, outstruck him and managed to stop him in the 4th round. And Danny Sabatello from American Top Team, I think he's quite a highly touted prospect, very strong wrestling background. Danny did win the first 2 rounds there with his wrestling, but Erwin from round 2 he was making it more difficult for Sabatello to achieve the takedowns and maintain top control. He's pretty fast, Rivera. He scrambles pretty well, but Danny was 2 rounds up, but Rivera just took over in round 3 and then stopped him in round 4 again I think he hurt him with to the body again, much like his previous fight. So he is southpaw. He's got that dangerous liver kick from the southpaw stance. And then, as I've already mentioned, Giga, he was just overmatched again. So with Erwin, he's a striker. He trains at Sanford, the old Blackzilians team. I liked he can be taken down, but he scrambles well. He gets back up to his feet. He doesn't concede bottom position for too long. Danny Sabatello did have some top time, but that's a very high level wrestler there that he was facing. But he was scrambling up from round 2 onwards, and he was making it harder for Danny to hit the takedown. So I think he can avoid the takedowns here. I think he might get taken down a few times, but from what I could see on tape, Ali's top control isn't the best. I think Erwin will scramble back up. He needs to be careful with his neck scrambling back up, because Ali, although, as I've said, they should have been knocking that out of him, jumping for the guillotine, it's kind of his go-to move, so I would not be surprised to see him do it if he feels the neck is there. But I'm sure it's something Rivera's seen, and he trains at a good camp. He should be ready for something like that. So I'm pretty confident Rivera wins this fight with a sprawl and brawl type strategy. I think Ali is a step down compared to these last few fights, and I don't see him taking down and grinding Rivera out for 3 rounds. And it's getting harder and harder to win fights like that in the UFC if you're not doing much from top position. If you've just got a few minutes top control and the guy's out striking you on the feet, the judges are going with the striker. So I like Rivera there. There's actually been some money coming in on Ali the last 24 hours, which I thought minus 200 was pretty fair for Rivera. I mean, maybe I'm off here, but I kept him at more like minus 230. I thought it was more like 70%. But money's been coming in. I wonder if the line's going to drop any more. He's from minus 200. He's minus 175 now. So it'd be interesting to see if that shortens any more. But I do like Rivera here. So Rivera's the pick. Next fight, we've got Yusuf Zalal, Peter Barrett. Zalal looks like a solid prospect. We saw him not long ago against Jordan Griffin. Won a close fight, but deserved victory. Turning around pretty quick here against Peter Barrett, who some of you may remember from the Dana White Contender Series, trains with Mark Delagrotte. I'm not high on Peter Barrett. He's a scrappy guy. So with them types of people, you've got to be careful because they're the types that are losing fights, taking a beating, much like he did in his Contender Series fight in round 1, and then they come back and manage to grind out a win. So he's got that going for him, but he's at that match skill-wise here. I mean, it's reflected in the lines. Allows up at, almost minus 500 now, which is getting a little bit silly, I think. Zalal, he can make fights a bit closer than perhaps he otherwise should, but I have to go with Zalal there. I think he wins, even though I think the line's a little bit too wide. There's nothing really that makes me think or makes me want to pick Peter here for the value. Just looking at the props, over 2.5 rounds is at minus 160. I don't even really like that. I'm not sure on the finish. Does that transpire? It's flyweights, the best finishers. Peter Barrett is, he's a tough guy, but we've seen him on the regional scene. He's been stopped. He's been armbarred. Zalal could get this done. What is Zalal inside the distance? Any value on that? I'm assuming there probably isn't. Zalal inside the distance. Get plus 150. You're probably relying on a submission, I would have thought. It's not jumping off the chart at me. But Zalal's the pick, but there's no value on the money line. I'm sure everyone's parlaying him up though. Featherweight division next. Gavin Tucker, Justin James. I taped this a couple of days ago. I wasn't even going to tape it because Tucker was minus 200 and I thought there's no way I'm playing Tucker. And then I did tape when he dropped to about minus 170 and kind of understood why James was getting bet. And now Tucker's come all the way down to minus 125. That's quite a lot of movement. You can get minus 125 at Bet Online. Justin James is coming off that spectacular UFC win a short while ago against Frank Camacho, where he took it on short notice and knocked Camacho out in the first round, and that was up at 155. This is James's. I think he's tried to cut to 145 before and he missed the weight. So this is, if he makes the weight, it'll be the first time he's made 145. Look, Gavin Tucker is the more skilled fighter here. He's got very good stand-up. He's much quicker. He looked great in his UFC debut against Sam Sicilia, but he did slow down a bit in the third round. And then he had that fight with Rick Glenn where he got hurt in the first round and he just never recovered, took a almighty beating. The ref got a lot of slack for that fight. I don't know if we've seen that ref since, actually. And then he came back. He's not been out for a year again, but he came back last year. He fought I can't remember the guy's name, the Asian chap that Evloev beat in his debut. And he looked really good. I mean, he was giving away like ridiculous amount of height and reach, but he done his camp at TriStar, came in with a solid game plan, utilised his grappling. He's a black belt under Renzo Gracie. And he managed to get the finish in the third round. It was, really smart game plan. His cardio held up as well. Now, against Sicilia, he gassed because it was all stand-up and he uses a lot of movement with his stand-up. He's one of these guys that uses a lot of exaggerated movement, which, you don't really need to be using it some of the time, especially when you're out of range. There's no need to be, using too much energy. And he's one of them that does do that. But against this guy, he was mainly in the clinch, wrestling, and he looked really good. A lot of people were fading him in that fight, but he came through with a win. Justin James, from what I can gather, he has some sort of wrestling background. I saw him say that he lost to Jakar Close in college. And he does have a 5-round win over Troy. I can't remember his surname. The fight is available if you want to watch it. And Troy tries to take him down a few times. He does get into his butt a few times, but Troy, I think, is a Division 1 wrestler. But that's as best that it gets for Troy. He gets into his butt. James manages to get back to his feet pretty quickly. And that strikes him over the 5 rounds. So that showed me that the guy can fight at a pace. Now, the worry here with Tucker is he's going to be winning in round 1. James is going to come out. He's going to try and throw bombs. Tucker, he's going to look the much better fighter to begin with. It's just the worry is if he slows down, because James is the type that's going to keep coming for the 3 rounds. Tucker's not, I don't think he's the biggest puncher in the world. And even though the wrestling worked well in his last fight, I'm not so sure it's going to work against James. James is, he's the guy moving down in weight. He's going to be the bigger guy. I could see this being a stand-up fight. And Tucker also, he hasn't done his camp at TriStar from what I can tell going off of his Instagram, due to, I'm sure, with everything going on. So, I like that Faraz gave him that game plan for the last fight. And how's he going to approach this fight? Is he talking to Faraz? Faraz giving him a game plan, a way to approach his fight? I don't know. So the worry is just, if this is on the feet for 3 rounds, he starts to slow down. So that's what gave me pause. But the line now, so I went from when I first did the tape thinking, I wish I'd kind of take this when Tucker was minus 200 and James was probably what plus 160, plus 170, because I might have been tempted by James. Now the value's probably come back on to Tucker. If you bet James, I think you are relying on Tucker gassing, and I don't like betting on a guy feeling like I need the opponent to gas. But to flip that, I'm betting on, if I bet Tucker, I'm hoping he doesn't gas, and I just hate having that feeling in my stomach when I've bet a fighter and I'm looking to see if they're slowing down. So it's a hard fight to call this one, but I think now with the way the line is, I think, Tucker, he styled on Cecilia. He had the tough loss to Rick Glenn. He came back, completely different game plan. Looked really good in his last fight, and his cardio held up in that fight for the 3 rounds. Now, it was mainly wrestling, but there was he was using a lot of energy. There was a lot of clinching, a lot of takedowns. The guy was getting back to his feet, but his cardio system held up. But striking and grappling cardios, they're different cardio systems. So I just wonder, if you bet James, you could be regretting it after round 1. If Tucker maintains the pace that he needs to for 3 rounds, he's probably going to style on him. So based on the current line, I'm going to go with Gavin Tucker here. But it could definitely get nervy in the second half of the fight if Tucker starts to slow down. But I'll go with Tucker based on the current line of anywhere from minus 125 to minus 135. And you've got James cutting as well. Is that going to affect his cardio at all? First time down at 145. Who knows? There's a lot of. My main concern around this fight is gas tanks. So it always makes me nervous when that's my main concern when I'm betting on someone. But Gavin Tucker is the more skilled fighter, without a shadow of a doubt, and he's quicker. Next fight we've got on the card is, I think it's the Andrew Sanchez fight. Bring up the card 1 second, guys. So we've got, Andrew Sanchez, Wellington Turman. I mentioned this in the intro. There was a fight that I'd bet and I've balled out of it. I actually had a couple of units on Wellington Turman and I've balled out of it. I just had an uneasy feeling in my stomach all week about this bet. I don't like going against my gut, so I've balled out of it. If Turman wins, I break even. If Sanchez wins, I take a small loss. I did tip this to members as well, and I've told them to buy out and just, if Sanchez wins, we just take a very small loss as opposed to a 2-unit loss. Look, Turman's young. We haven't seen him for about 8 or 9 months. He's only, I think he's 23 years of age. He is, or 24 now, he's just turned 24. There's a high chance he comes in here looking at an improved version of the last version we saw. He reminds me of Aurora Marvin Vettori, just kind of with his fighting style, his frame, his thickness. It just reminds me of Aurora version of Marvin Vettori. The Carl Robertson fight was the UFC debut. He lost. Pretty controversial decision. A lot of people scored that for him, and there was nothing Carl really done in that fight. It was more Wellington throwing it away. He basically, in the 2 rounds that he ultimately lost on, 2 of the judges' cards were rounds that he had Robertson down. He took Robertson's back, but he lost the position, and Robertson ended up on top, and Wellington just couldn't get back to his feet. And that therein is where my part of my concerns lie with backing him against Sanchez. Perez, he took a pretty comfortable decision over 3 rounds. A lot of his fights are in the clinch, though. His stand-up's a work in progress. His stand-up's quite raw, but it's still quite dangerous. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of improvements he's made with his stand-up. His cardio holds up well. But as I've said, a lot of his fights involve him in the clinch and getting takedowns and top control. Andrew Sanchez, very solid wrestler. He's not going to get Sanchez down. I don't think Sanchez has been taken down in his UFC career. He's also very good in the clinch. Now, one of the other things that I remembered that just put me off, I remember GSP saying that Sanchez is like the best guy he's ever felt in the clinch in MMA on the fence. So if these two are on the fence a lot, Sanchez is a tough guy to move on that fence. Is Turman going to be skilled enough to escape off the fence, or is he going to engage in a clinch battle with Sanchez, which probably isn't the best idea? And my other worry is if he does end up on the bottom against Carl Robertson, he was just stuck there, wasn't trying to get back to his feet. It's a bad look, and if he ends up underneath Sanchez, he could end up dropping the round. So, and even on the feet, even if they're at range, I think Sanchez's boxing is better. It wouldn't surprise me if Turman wins the stand-up just on pure aggression and landing maybe the more eye-catching shots, because what Sanchez does is he's changed his style. He used to gas badly. You go and watch his, even that Trevor Smith fight, he slowed down badly in that fight. I think the Khalil Roundtree fight he slowed down in, where he just wrestled. Anthony Smith fight he slowed down and got stopped in round 3. Ryan James, he couldn't finish James in round 1 and he just dropped off a cliff round 2 onwards. It looked like against Mark, so he basically changed up his style from his next fight, the Marcus Perez fight. You could see he's he pulls his punches more now and it doesn't put as much power into them. But he looked decent in that fight. Won a decision. It was a close fight, but he won a fair decision. Next he fought Marc-Andre Barrett, who he won the first round against. Round 2 it started going downhill. It looked like he'd gassed, but he came out in round 3 and fair play to him. He got Mark up against the fence, got him down, kept him down for a few minutes. Mark got back up, kept him on the fence, grinded out the decision. Fair play there, because he was looking tired at the end of round 2. And then Marvin Vettori, Vettori looked really, really good in that fight. He was just a better striker, and Sanchez couldn't deal with it at all. But Vettori, I think, is a contender in that middleweight division. I think he's a very promising prospect. And the other thing to bear in mind is Sanchez is like 31, 32. Wellington's a guy that should be making the improvements. Sanchez, probably seen the best version of him there. But fair play for changing up his style. He is a tri-star. Faraz is obviously devising good game plans for him. But I just see this being a close fight, and I can see a lot of it being in the clinch. And that just worries me with regards to can he win a decision in the clinch against Sanchez? I don't know. I'm still going to pick Wellington here, but I'm not overly confident with the pick, so I'm just not overly confident, and I think this fight does go to the scorecard. So I think if you've got if you like Sanchez, bet his money line. He's the underdog, but Sanchez by a decision is plus 230. So as I always say, you might as well put majority of your money on the money line and put a little bit on the decision line, and then you've got the comeback on Wellington Turman to win by decision is plus 130, plus 140. Again, if you like him, I'd bet the money line and put a little bit on the decision. I definitely think it sees the cards. There's no value on the over though. It's almost minus 300. But I do think it's going to be a closely contested fight. So I don't fault anyone betting Andrew Sanchez here. I think it will be close. I think it will see the cards. But you might get an improved version of Wellington, which you'd expect for a guy at that age. So he might come out and win a surprisingly close but clear decision. So I'll stick with Turman, but it's not a confident pick. I definitely feel this is going to be a close fight. Next fight, we've got Nasrat Haqparast taking on Alex Munoz. Alex Munoz is the wrestling coach at Team Alpha Male. I'm not overly high on Alex, to be completely honest. He's at Team Alpha Male. He's well trained. I don't think he's a real true fighter though. Just watching him fight, his wrestling base is obviously very good, but I think Nasrat's going to knock him out. Nasrat struggled with Marcin Held. It was a fight he took on short notice. It was 3 years ago. He was only, 21, 22 years of age. He's coming off a knockout loss. He's not going to have to worry about getting knocked out here. There's a massive gulf on the feet. Nasrat is a smart guy. He takes it very seriously. He trains at TriStar normally. I think he's had to train in Germany for this camp, but I have to assume that his takedown defense has improved. And he did hurt Marcin Held, and I think Marcin Held, when he gets on top, is a more dangerous guy in terms of finishing. From what I could see from tape, I don't think Alex has the best top control. I think you can get back to your feet, and I think Nasrat will, and Alex will have to have a lot of top control to win a decision here, because on the feet he's going to get lit up. Nasrat is very quick on the feet. He's got good power. I like Nasrat here. I'm not playing his money line because I'm only playing money lines that are kind of this kind of price, minus 250, if I think it's an absolute lock. And I wouldn't say this is an absolute lock because there is a path for Alex here, and we haven't seen Nasrat's wrestling defence for a while. But I do think he gets lit up here. And just as I said, from watching his fights, Alex, he did slow down in his last fight, and I just get the impression that he's kind of going to get folded if he faces some proper adversity. It's just a feel I get from watching him on tape. So definitely on Nasrat. I'm seriously considering Nasrat KO here. You can get, it's plus 175 at Sports International. I don't know who they are, but generally it's like plus 160, plus 170 for his KO line. You probably should take inside the distance just in case he drops him and ends up rear naked choking him. That is Nasrat inside the distance. I'm trying to find the line. Is plus 140, plus 150. You may as well just play that, guys, because I've done it before. I've tried to be clever over like 0.10, and I've ended up losing the bet. So just take him inside the distance if you like it. But I personally think he puts Alex away here. Alex only had 6 fights as well. His fights pretty irregular. It's I don't really know what the intention is, but he's going to come out here. He's going to look to wrestle. That's the only thing. It could make Nasrat maybe a little bit hesitant, but I think Alex is slow as well, and I think Nasrat will be able to work his way back to his feet. So I'm pretty confident in Nasrat there. Tim Means taking on Staropoli next. It's a really tough fight to call this one. What does Tim Means have left? And Staropoli, I don't think Staropoli's great, but he's game. He's game. He's in there. He'll throw. A lot of what he throws doesn't land. It's something I noticed on tape. Like he'll explode forward. He'll let a load of punches go, and a lot of them won't land. He doesn't have the greatest kind of leverages for a welterweight. He's got quite a short reach, but he is game. And he came back well in the third round of his last fight against Salikov, where he had a tough second round where he nearly got stopped, but he's game. Right? He bit down and he came back in the third round and had his best round of the fight. The question here is, a few years ago I would have taken Tim Means to pick him apart. Tim was always known for his solid chin, but started to let him down a little bit. He's coming off it's not a KO loss, but it's as good as. He got subbed in the end, but he was looking alright though against Rodriguez in the first round. Then literally the last second he got caught behind the ear, and it just knocked him senseless. He never recovered. He gets hurt again in round 2, and then ultimately gets subbed. But he was winning the fight up until he got caught the last second of the first round. He pinned Rodriguez on the back foot. He was getting his jab going. He was looking okay. And before that, he was coming off the win over Thiago Alves, where he had a bit of a slow start there. Alves came out hot, but he put Alves, similar to how he lost to Rodriguez, actually. Dropped Alves heavily, had him badly hurt, and then he actually sunk in a guillotine. And before that, the Nico Price fight, where, again, he was winning it handedly. He was all over Nico Price. He even slapped Nico Price, disrespected him completely. but he was tooling him on the feet. And then right at the end of the first round, he got hit by a monster. I can't remember if it was a right or left hand. Went down. He done some bad damage. I think he broke his ankle from the fall. So it's, has Nico Price taken his chin? Because before that, he was always really durable, Tim. But when you do nitpick Tim's record, he's never really had a big win. I know Thiago Alves is a big name, but Alves has been shot for years. But he's got another fight here. Staropoli's not a big name, so it's the type of fight that Tim would have been winning. But I done take wanting to bet Staropoli, and then I came away and was just really unsure. So I've got no confidence here in this pick, but I haven't picked an underdog yet. I'm just looking. I've picked all favourites so far. I don't like doing that because, as we know in this sport, that you're not going to get a card where all the favourites win. So I'm going to pick means. Literally, I am going against my gut here, but I can't pick Tim Means. But I can't pick Staropoli here to win this fight. I don't know. I just don't think he's that great. And you look at the competition that he's had so far in the UFC. He beat Thiago Alves. It wasn't a great performance, and this is a shadow of the former Thiago Alves. Before that, Hector Aldana, who's terrible, and then he's coming off a spirited loss to Muslim Salikov. But I picked him here, but honestly, guys, I've got no confidence in this. I'm not touching this fight. I did consider the over. That was the play I was considering on this fight. And it's actually been bet down a little bit because Staropoli is durable. Not sure if Means puts him away. And Means has historically been durable. And that fight against Rodriguez, it did come from a shot behind the ear. It wasn't on his chin per se. But obviously he did have the Price knockout loss. So if anything tempts me on this fight, it is the over. But I haven't bet it yet. I think I was strongly considering it, and then I remembered it's a small cage, and I just thought it's going to be a terrible sweat. So that's the one way I'm leaning at the moment, but I haven't bet it, and I probably don't think I will. But I'll pick Tim Means just because he's the underdog here. Although, has money been coming in on Staropoli? It's not really moved. No, you can get plus 115, plus 120. But yeah, zero confidence in the pick. Lightweight division next. Beneil Dariush taking on Scott Holtzman. This is another fight where I've oohed and ahed on. Look, I just can't bet Dariush. I bet him last fight against Drakkar Klose, and Beneil just looks shaky on the feet. He's had a couple of bad. I don't think his chin's terrible. If you go and watch his fight with Drew Dober, he took some solid shots off Drew Dober. He was kind of getting rocked and a bit flustered on the feet, but he was never really hurt. And Drew Dober cracks. So I'm not ready to write the obituary completely on his chin, and that was partly why I bet Klose. But when they were standing, Klose landed some big shots. Now, he didn't look like he was. Well, he did look hurt actually in that second round. He was hurt. He just looks shaky to me on the feet. I don't know whether it's a combination of. I think he lacks a bit of confidence on the feet now. Because if you go and watch his fights pre the KO loss to Alexander Hernandez, the guy had really good stand-up. He comes from Kings. You go and watch his fight with Barboza, and I remember I bet Barboza in that fight, and he was outstriking Barboza, and then Barboza pulled that flying knee out of nowhere. He's got good striking. He's good in the clinch as well, but I just think his confidence on the feet is shot. He had a couple of bad KO losses. The Hernandez and Barboza KO losses, brutal, out cold knockout losses. And he's a smart guy. He changed his fight style completely after the Hernandez fight. Grappled Thiago Moises for 3 rounds. Drew Dober, he was forced to stand with him for the first round because he couldn't get him down to his feet, and he took a bit of a beating on the feet, but he didn't go down, and eventually he managed to get the submission. Got this takedown in round 2. Frank Camacho, immediate takedown submission. Drakkar Klose, immediate takedown, had his back all of round 1. I couldn't get the finish, and then Yeah, he came out round 2 and the car was lighting him up on the feet. I thought my bet was done. And then it's still my favourite knockout of this year. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. Absolutely brilliant knockout that he lands on close. So he is still dangerous on the feet. He has got power. He put James Vick away on the feet as well. I think it was Evan Dunham, he had badly hurt in round 1 as well with their fight. So you've got to respect him on the feet, but I just think his confidence is a little bit shot on the feet. I don't think he trusts his chin, and rightly so. And why do you want to get knocked out again? You know, they take years off your life, those nasty knockout losses. And he's still young. I think he's only he's 31. I thought he was 29, I was going to say. Scott Holtzman is a very physical guy, very strong, very aggressive. He's got power, but much like Omari Akhmedov, who we'll speak about in a little while, he doesn't really have the KO wins. If you look at his UFC record, he hasn't KO'd anyone besides Alan Patrick, who he looked really good against. We dropped him standing and he put him away from the mount with a brutal elbows, and he did stop Maestro Kim, but he did drop him I think a couple of times, but the win ultimately came from bad swelling to the eye, and the doctor stopped it. But he does have power, but he's not going out and knocking people out on the feet. Like the Patrick win ultimately came from ground and pound, and the Kim fight was ultimately due to swelling on the eye. So can he knock out Beneil Dariush? I mean, he can, but when I think about it, just based on his record, it does seem unlikely. But I mean, if they are standing, he is going to land some bombs. Now, Scott Holtzman, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu himself, but Beneil Dariush is a different level in the jiu-jitsu world. Beneil he will be able to take Scott down. I'd be surprised if he can't take Scott down. And Nick Lentz is a much better takedown artist than Beneil Dariush, because he has that. I think he's Division 1 wrestler, Nick Lentz, and that's how he scraped that win over Scott Holtzman. But the difference being is, albeit Dariush's takedowns aren't as good, he's a jiu-jitsu guy, and the wrestling guys aren't as good as keeping guys down on the mat. Someone like Dariush will take your back if you give your back to stand up, and he'll control that type of position for the round. Whereas the wrestlers don't generally do that. That's not their forte. And Dariush is the kind of guy that will do that. You saw it in a close fight, had his back all round 1, a bit standing up. Seen it in many of his fights. You go back and watch Dariush's career. He's a very, very good grappler. Now, Holtzman is very good at getting back to his feet, but he does give his back up a lot getting back to his feet. And Beneil is the type of guy that will jump on his back as soon as he exposes it. So this just became a tough fight for me to break down, because round 1, I feel Beneil is very live, and a submission in round 1 wouldn't shock me. But if it goes beyond round 1, I just envisage a massive sweat, because I don't trust Beneil on the feet, albeit Scott isn't going out there and knocking people out. He does have power. He does ring people's bells, but he's not flatlining people. And the Alex Hernandez fight, Beneil was, caught cold, I think. It was a very early one. This happens. I speak about this a lot. People get caught cold. And then Barboza one, he literally, I think he was coming forward and run into a flying knee. I mean, it's going to knock most people out. And he did take shots off Dober, and he took some shots off Close, but I just didn't like the way Close was landing, like pretty much everything he threw. So, and the other thing with Dariush is his gas tank he can slow down in fights. And someone like Scott does get tired, but he's one of these guys that fights through it really well. He's just a tough guy. You can watch his fight with Josh Emmett. Emmett lands some absolute bombs on him, and he does get dropped to a knee, I think, at one point, but the guy keeps coming. He's durable. He will keep coming at Dariush. But I can see how Dariush wins this fight, either round 1 or even a decision. But I can also just see it being an incredible sweat. So I've just avoided it. Money's coming on Dariush this week as well. I definitely wouldn't be touching him now. He's like minus 180 now. I think the play here is if you like Scott, you think he can survive probably a rough round 1 and come back. But then he's probably got to win 2 rounds, because even though, Dariush is hittable, Dariush isn't just going to stand with him for the next 2 rounds. He's going to be trying to take him down and work in the clinch and so forth. So, you start looking at you've got the over-under, and it's an even money line. Is there much value there? Possibly not. And then you look at Dariush decision sitting out at plus 300. I think that might be a little bit of value if you like playing props. Perhaps Dariush by decision is where I'd lean. Dariush by submission is plus 200. I think I prefer the decision at plus 300 in all honesty. Holtzman KO plus 450. It's not bad, but like I said, he's not going out starching people, and Dariush did take shots off Dober, who's a bigger puncher. So I don't think he's just going to get shut down that easily. And the Hernandez one was, he was caught cold. So I'm going to pick Dariush here, but I don't like the money line at the moment. You could have got minus 150 or so. I don't think I regret passing on that though, just because, as I say, I just think there's going to be some sweaty spells in this fight. Next fight, we've got the women's 135 division. We've got Julija Stoliarenko taking on Yana Kunitskaya. Have to go with Kunitskaya here. I watched a couple of Stoliarenko's fights. I watched her fight on The Ultimate Fighter, or it was The Ultimate Fighter finale. I watched her fight. She just got tooled up by Aleksei. And I watched her last fight in Invicta, which was a complete bloodbath. She got cut. I think she got cut and her opponent got cut. Her opponent definitely got cut. I think she did as well. She's really hittable. She's very aggressive on the feet. She'll throw hands, but she's just really, really hittable. And she has this bad habit of she would pull guard to go for her armbar, which she's subbed some real poor fighters with. And it's women's MMA. It wouldn't shock me if she pulled guard on Kunitskaya and wrapped her up in an armbar. But it's low percentage stuff. And I think Kunitskaya will come out here. She will try and fight long. She does that pretty well with her teep kick, with her low kicks. And Stoliarenko's the kind of person that tactic will work well on, because she just runs into stuff. And Kunitskaya is really good in the clinch as well. I think if she does feel like Stoliarenko's pressure's getting to her, she can just put her on the fence and rest there, work some in the fence. She's very good on the fence. She out-clinched Lena Landsberg, who's really good there. And she was getting the better of Aspen Ladd when they was on the fence as well. But Ladd got her down once and then dropped her at the start of round 3. But I think this is her fight to win. I mean, she's out at minus 240 at places now. It's lower level women's MMA. You don't want to be paying juice on it because silly stuff can happen. But I think Kunitskaya by decision, if there's any value on this fight, is where the value is. And it sits at, it's been bet. Was even money last time I looked, but now it's like minus 130. William Hill is minus 110. I wouldn't play minus 130, but minus 110, I think, maybe throw half a unit on it if you like Kunitskaya here. I don't see her finishing. Stoliarenko's ridiculously tough. I see it being on the feet. I'd be shocked if Kunitskaya put her away on the feet, and then I'd see a lot of clinching as well. So I think the fight does see the over actually is only set at minus 200. That is surprising. That does surprise me. Over 2.5 rounds. You don't see that on women's MMA very often. I wonder why that's so low. So actually, no, I like Kunitskaya decision, and I like the over there, 2.5 rounds. That does surprise me that it's so low. I thought it was going to be like minus 400. So I think there's value there on that over 2.5 rounds. So, but Kunitskaya for the W there. Darren Stewart, Maki Pitolo next. Money came in on, a lot of money came in on Darren Stewart, but the last day or so, money started coming back on Pitolo. Darren Stewart is I mean, he varies. He's pretty much minus 155, minus 160 now. And I know some guys got Stewart at like minus 120, minus 125. I may have bet that, but by the time I done tape, he was out at minus 175. He's come down a little bit since. But this is another fight where I'm just really not confident on either guy. It's a hard one to call. Pitolo, I think he's much more suited to 185. I think a lot of people still look at that loss he had against Potter at 170, where he looked absolutely horrible. But I just think he's a better fighter at 185. He looked much better in his last fight against Charles Bird, and his fight on the Contender Series, where he looked good as well, was at 185. I just think he's better at 185. On commentary they said he cuts from 215 to make welterweight, and he had all sorts of difficulty making the weight against Potter as well. So I do think 185 is the better weight class for him. He goes to his wrestling as well. You watch some of his regional fights, he uses wrestling. He used it against Bird. He's not the best top control guy. Kind of loses position. I think even if he gets Stewart down, I don't think he'll have any joy keeping him down. Stewart would probably be a bigger favourite here if it wasn't for the fact that he had that horrible showing in Cage Warriors last fight, where they switched his fight from the UFC because of the COVID situation to Cage Warriors. But it's a completely different stylistic fight here. He's, Fabinski is a grinder. He's going to try and wrestle you for free. Pitolo, he might try some takedowns here, but as I said, I think even if he got Stewart down, Stewart will get back to his feet. I don't see this fight playing out on the mat. I think mostly it's going to be standing. And I mean, I put a tweet out earlier in the week saying that there's no value on Stewart now. That was when he was minus 200. The money's come back in. He's, as I said, minus 155, minus 160 now. I think to pull the trigger, I'd want him slightly lower, but I do think on the feet he wins this fight. Last time he fought a striker, he fought Darren Wynn, who he outstruck, but Wynn was trying to wrestle him as a wrestler as well. He's had two wrestlers back to back. The last time he fought a striker was Bevan Lewis, and he looked solid in that fight. But Bevan Lewis was a guy that was fighting with a severe lack of confidence after that knockout loss. And before that, he fought a wrestler as well in Edmund Shabazi, and he just wrestled him for 3 rounds. So, to be fair to Stewart, 3 of his last 4 fights have been guys trying to wrestle him. They're tough fights to look good in. Before that, Charles Bird stood with him. Charles Bird was out striking him until he knocked him out in the second round. And, the Eric Spicely fight was a competitive round 1. The problem I have with Stewart, he's not really a guy that goes out and kind of puts his stamp on fights. Even the Bevan Lewis fight, I think round 1 was fairly clear. But then after that, the volume from Stewart really dropped off and it became a lot closer. He's not the kind of guy that goes out there and, he's going to dominate a round. So I can just see it. If he doesn't put Maki away, I can see it being a close fight if it hits the scorecards. But I've got to go Stewart. I think he's the more athletic guy, I feel he's the stronger guy. I feel he packs more power in his punch, and I think he's got the better chin. So I have to go with Stewart for them reasons. But if he doesn't put him away, I can just see it being a close fight. Just because of the way Stewart fights, he isn't really an efficient round winner for me. So Stewart, I'll pick Stewart, but I'm not massively confident here. And with regards to overplays and whatnot, I don't know. I just don't know what to make of Pitolo's chin, because I think both of the knockout losses he had were at welterweight. The Cassius Kane one was a really bad knockout, brutal knockout, but that was at welterweight. And then I know he's got one early in his career as well. Just checking, that was welterweight as well. I don't know if his chin's going to hold up better at middleweight. And so it's just a real tough fight. I'm really conflicted on it. I kind of, my gut goes with Stewart, but I just don't like the thought of betting him, just because Stewart he isn't this guy that goes out and dominates fights. And I think Pitolo gets a bit too much stick for that. Potter fight where I just think he's better at 185. So I'm picking Stewart. I'm not betting him at his current price. I'd need him to come back into what some of the guys I know got, like the minus 120 kind of area. And I can see it being close over 3 rounds if he can't get Pitolo out there. But as I said, chin, power, athleticism, I think they all favour Stewart. So I'll go with him in a fight that I'm struggling to get a good read on, as you can tell. Next up, we're on the co-main event now. If we are, it's Chris Weidman taking on Omari Akhmedov. I took too long making my mind up on this fight. I really thought Chris was going to hit plus money. I waited out for plus money. I was going to bet him if he hit plus money. He got down to minus 105. I really thought he was going to flip to plus money. He didn't. Money came in on him. So I can't bet Chris now out at minus 135. Chris is moving back down to middleweight after his ill-fated move to light heavyweight against Reyes. I bet Reyes there. I thought it was a terrible move for Chris going up against an even bigger power puncher than the ones that have been knocking him out. I didn't think it was going to work out well for him. Look, the thing with Chris is you look at the level of competition he's lost to. He's lost 5 of his last 6 fights. Okay. But he's lost to Luke Rockhold, Yoel Romero, Gegard Mousasi, Ronaldo Souza, Jacare, and Dominic Reyes. I don't like making excuses for fighters because it feels like you're reaching. But the Luke Rockhold fight, he was winning that fight until he went for this dumb spinning back kick in the 4th round and ended up underneath Rockhold. And you just don't want to end up underneath Luke Rockhold. Yoel Romero fight was even going into the 3rd round. Got caught by a flying knee. Gegard Mousasi fight, I didn't really like that from Chris. It looked to me like he kind of looked for a way out in that fight to me. So that wasn't a good performance. Came back though against Kelvin Gastelum. Got dropped, but he just big brothered Kelvin Gastelum and got a submission in round 3. Jacare fight. Whether you had it 1-1 or 2-0, the judges had it 2-0. The 2nd round was a lot closer than the 1st round. I had Chris winning round 3 until he got knocked out. Chris looked pretty good in that fight. He looked good on the feet, didn't go for any takedowns. He hasn't really, except for the Mousasi fight and the Gastelum fight in a lot of his recent fights. But he looked good in that fight. He was using his jab well. He kind of did get dragged into some exchanges in the pocket, which I don't like. Kind of makes me worry against Omari. He had the same reach advantage over Jacare as he had over Jacare. He had the same reach advantage over Jacare that he has over Omari. But there was just, Jacare does pressure more than Omari though. Omari is more of a counter striker. But he kind of, I would have liked to have seen him moving out from them exchanges, but he was kind of getting held up in the clinch and kind of trading back with him. But he did look good. When he was throwing his straight shots, he was throwing a nice 1-2, he was using his jab well, and then he got knocked out by that temple shot. So it's just, where is the guy's chin at? And where's his confidence at? Is he going to be confident? Is he going to be the old Chris Weidman out there? Is he going to be hesitant? Omari, he's definitely looked better since he's moved up to middleweight. He's a tough out for most people. He's, physically strong and he throws with heat. Now, the thing with him, much like Scott Holtzman, is he does crack, but the only knockout in his UFC run is his UFC debut. Haven't watched it for years, but I remember it was just a crazy brawl and he got the knockout in the 1st round. Since then, he's not knowing out, but I see a lot of people saying Omari's not knocked anyone out, and I do get that, but please don't think he doesn't crack. And if he lands flush, he can't put Chris away. He can. When you watch his fights, you can see people don't want to trade in the pocket with Omari at all. You watch the Ian Heinisch fight, he blocked Ian Heinisch in that fight, and you could see, in the fight, Heinisch did not, and that's Heinisch's kind of style normally. He didn't want to get involved in those exchanges. Marvin Vettori even. I mean, Marvin would beat Omari now, without a shadow of a doubt. Marvin's improved so much, but Marvin's got a granite chin, and, you know, Marvin didn't want anything to do with Omari the first half of that fight. He was backing out of the exchanges. He didn't like the power that was coming back at him at all. So the guy can crack. Now, Chris has got a big reach advantage here, I think about 6 inches. He's going to have to use it. He's going to have to try and fight long. The advantage for Chris is Omari is a counter-striker. You know, he will move forward sometimes and attack in spurts, but generally he's a counter-fighter. He wants you to move in and then he'll fire his wild hooks. And that's the other thing as well. He's kind of all hooks. He doesn't really throw anything straight. A hook takes longer to find the target than a straight punch. So if you combine Chris's reach advantage and his straight punches versus Omari's hooks, should be difficult for Omari to hit him. But if he does touch Chris's chin, it's obviously a big worry. The other thing as well is Chris can go to his wrestling here. Omari was getting taken down by Ian Heinisch. Was the third round, and Omari does slow down in fights. You know, he throws a lot. He puts a lot into those power punches he throws. So, you know, I regret not taking Chris, because especially now I've said it out loud. Chris play does make sense here, but you have to. I wouldn't go crazy with a big bet, because you have to be aware that Chris is on a decline. His chin isn't great, and this is MMA, 4-ounce gloves. It only takes one shot. So I do regret not betting Chris, to be honest, now that I've broken it down out loud. But it's -135. I can't really play -135 for a guy that could be shot. You know, he could come out and get blasted in the first round. So, but I'm going to pick Chris here to get the win. Main event next, we've got Aleksei Oleinik taking on the Black Beast, Derrick Lewis. I'm actually picking Derrick Lewis here. Now, I've picked Oleinik as a big underdog in a few of his recent fights. I picked him against Verdum. I picked him against Mark Hunt. But in this particular fight, I think it's a difficult fight for him. I can see why people have bet Oleinik, and he's got bet down. The guy's dangerous. But Derrick Lewis is... Look, he does dumb stuff. I'm definitely not betting Derrick Lewis, by the way. There's no way I'm betting Derrick Lewis. He does silly stuff. He'll throw these pointless kicks that always get caught, and he gets taken down off them. He will just do random stuff in there. He's weak to the body. I don't think that's really going to matter here. But for all the technique he lacks on the mat, the guy just literally stands back up. Like, it's crazy what he does. He will just stand back up. He's so difficult to hold down. I think the only guy I remember having much joy with him on the mat was actually the European fighter. What's his name? Remember his name? Tybura. I think he's the one that's had the most success on the mat with him, but ultimately he got knocked out in the third round. And Derrick Lewis has shown he carries that power through a fight, even though he gets tired. You know, he still has that knockout power. Look at the Volkov fight. And the thing with Oleinik is his cardio's kind of looks a little bit better lately. But you know, the way he punches, he comes in with windmills. He's just there to be hit. He is durable, but you just don't want to be getting hit by flush by the Black Beast. And you know, I just don't really see him having much joy on the mat. I think if he gets him down, I don't really see him putting in hooks and choking out Derrick Lewis, having his back. I just don't really see that. I see it more if he subs him, it's one of his not fluky because he's really good at it, but like an Ezekiel choke or something. I just see Derrick just standing back up when he gets taken down. He's just so hard to hold down, and on the feet, I just think he gets caught at some point. So I'm not playing Derrick Lewis, definitely not. I can't fault anyone for playing Oleinik as an underdog. He keeps going through as an underdog, but I just don't personally like him here. I think Derrick Lewis is going to win this fight. If you're trying to find value on the fight, it's set at 1.5. It's pretty much even money. It's just a giant sweat. I mean, I don't really feel there's any value there at a pick'em. Lewis wins by a KO. He's -150. Not a great line. Oleinik by submission +265. I mean, as I always say, if you're betting the money line for an underdog, especially at heavyweight, don't be putting much on the props because, you know, he could knock Black Beast out. It's unlikely, but it's heavyweight. You know, there's definitely more of a chance of a random KO. So I would take mainly the money line, as I always say. But if you want to have a little play on the prop, I mean, Oleinik's submission line is plus 250, which isn't bad. If you think he wins the fight, if he wins, it probably is bias. But then he could get him down and ground him and pound him out. I don't know. Just stick to the money line. I think you're trying to get too cute on that one. If you just want to have a little flutter on the fight, just for entertainment, then probably a submission is the way to go. But yeah, I wouldn't get too cute with it. That's the card wrapped up, guys. It's a tough card for me. Nothing that I love. I mean, you know, I love picking underdogs for value, but how many did I actually pick on this card in the end? I think I've hardly picked any. I picked. Let's have a look. Oh, I missed the Buckley Kevin Holland fight. That's because I was on Tapology. I haven't even taped that fight, guys. It's I said Kevin Holland would be minus 400. I think he opened minus 350. And now he's minus 450. There's no way on this earth anyone should be betting Kevin Holland at that big a favourite. And I haven't even looked at his opponent. So, I mean, I'll pick Holland to win just because I don't know if there is any value on Buckley. I've not looked at him. But I can tell you for a fact Kevin Holland at minus 450 is an easy pass. But yeah, looking at the card, I've only bet, I think, predicted me. God, I've only picked one underdog. Oh, that is unlike me. But that just shows you how unconfident I am on this card from a betting side. Because Tim Means I'm definitely not confident and I've picked him as the dog. I picked Turman, but Sanchez is live for me. Justin James is live. I might even change some of this when I actually put the prediction in the video, in the caption below the video. I'm going to put some of these dogs in because I can't just pick one underdog. We're not going to have all these favourites winning. I'll decide as I go. But I personally think James is live, Sanchez is live, Tim Means is live, Scott Holtzman is live, Pitolo is live. I mean, Omari, I guess, is live, but so there's a few there, but I'm just not feeling like a lot of them are going to win. We'll see. I'm typing it up in a minute. I'll see. Just look at the video below. You know, I've broken down all the fights. I don't think there's any crazy lines like we've had the last couple of weeks, like where I predicted that Gustafsson would lose plus 300 underdog. I predicted last week that Brunson would win another plus 300 underdog. I don't see any lines where they're wildly off. I don't think there's anything that's like, whoa, that's major value there on the underdog. So, but yeah, that's the card broken down, guys. Good luck with your bets, and I'll be back next week for Contender Series and UFC.